4,
Three,
3,
2.
2, 1. Love Talk.
And that's what we call blast off here on the K factor, where K equals kindness, and the factors are all the things that lead to it. It's Saturday morning, and it's Sensuous Saturdays. And I am here with, I'm your host, actually. I should tell you that, in case you forgot. This is your host, Dr. Deb Carlin, here on Blog Talk Radio. And I am here with my wonderful friend, Dr. Joy Martina. Good morning, Joy. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I love Sensuous Saturdays.
I do too. It just puts you into a certain frame of mind just to even think about it. You're getting in motion, which is what we need to do in life, isn't it?
We got to keep going, especially when we're going through hell.
Really, get me through here.
Let's keep moving.
So I have to tell our audience, this is funny. If you haven't been to us before, we do a Blog Talk Radio episode, which is all audio, and it gets loaded up to iTunes and posted on the social media platforms. And then simultaneously, so that we have a video component to it, we do this as a Zoom call at the same time. So we get a dual recording, and then this gets uploaded into YouTube. And, you know, YouTube's got this huge presence. So today, actually, this is really sweet. As much as I would love to look into Joy's face, because we get such great energy from one another. We have great auditory and frequency energy. But on the video today, I am live, and Joy and her husband, Roy, are in a pose that's just sweet. And it is a thank you. And you know what? I'm going to use that as the thumbnail, if you don't mind, over
I don't.
this YouTube video. Yeah, it'll be really sweet. So you are in the midst of what kind of a day? Tell us, how's your morning going?
Well, I started out, as I always do, with my little practice in the morning of doing a bit of energy work and meditating and really tuning into what my body needs today. So my body's feeling a little tired because I was doing a lot of gardening, which is lovely. But
Yeah.
I have, sometimes I think of myself as this ox, so sturdy and indestructible. And then I'm always a little surprised to find out, wow, you're a little more fragile than I thought.
Yeah.
And so now I'm more resting and recuperating, letting my body get back into a good space so that next week is another energetic week. I love weekends. I really do. And I've learned to celebrate them. I used to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to celebrate them too. I woke up slowly this morning and wandered around my home and indulged my house plants and my herbs that I've got growing on a nice, beautiful terrace, and just felt the joy of it. And it awakens you, you know, right? When you take that journey, and I'm walking in bare feet and feeling the flooring beneath my feet. It's this really nice stone, and it's a different kind of a smooth. And as I was walking across it, and it's a natural stone, I thought, I think I can feel the vibrations from the place on the earth where these came from. Isn't that cool? I never thought about it before.
That's so beautiful. And it's so important that we take a lot of time to walk barefoot on the ground, on earth.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So there's so much research around the importance of grounding, how the earth electromagnetic force field actually helps us heal. But so often we're cut off by it literally because of the soles of our shoes.
Yes.
So, there's been such an increase in disease and disconnectedness from the earth, let's just call it that, ever since of the evolution of sneakers. So having these rubber soles that are actually, cutting us off from electromagnetic force field of the earth has its downsides. And then I get especially concerned if I see how children are no longer really allowed to be barefoot, right? And then we send them to schools in concrete boxes, always in shoes.
Yep.
It's sad because it would be such a simple way to help ourselves. So everyone listening, take time today, take your shoes off and get those feet into the ground. Do
Absolutely. It is important. And I remember laughing when I had people over to my home, and I invited them to take off their shoes and sandals and be barefoot in the house, and then come out into the yard, out onto the deck, and walk the stepping stone pathways barefooted, and walk onto the small areas of grass, because most of my gardens have always been less grass and a lot more gardens and pathways. And people, thought, well, I haven't done that since I was a child. I know. We used to just call it going out to play.
Which is another important element, play, right?
Yes, 100%.
Allowing ourselves to have that open mind of a child, to allow ourselves this moment of awe, of simple pleasures like touching the ground with your feet, and really connecting to our senses. So great start to our talk today, I'd say.
I think so too. My journey this morning then continued into my kitchen, where I got myself water, and I love to drink out of beautiful glassware, all different kinds. And it has nothing to do with price. It has everything to do with the look and the feel and the size, and the way that the glass reaches the skin of your hands. And just, it's funny when people come over and I will decide what sort of glassware to put out. I'll have plain, straight glass, a lot of it handmade, some with different designs on it. So it's got a texture of some sort, some that's painted. And it's really funny because people have such reaction to it, as though they think that there's a glass is a glass. What are you talking about all this variation for? And then, I say to them, look, it's a fun thing, but it's also very sensual visually and in terms of tactile, right?
Absolutely. I have the same kind of thing going on with my mugs, my cups, because I'm a big tea drinker. So
Yes.
I am very particular about the mugs that I like for myself. So I like big mugs, but they have to be of porcelain. So I love the thin porcelain much more than the thick ceramic to drink my tea out of. It's just a little spleen.
Yes.
But I also have tons of different mugs and cups from all over the world, and there's so much memory in so many of them. So I'll pick a mug and I'll know exactly where I got it or who gave it to me. And I love that too. And I think it's part of maybe what connects us, Deborah, is that desire to live intentionally, to make these conscious choices. So yeah, it does matter. I mean, of course we can drink out of every glass. We don't want to be super attached to it, but if we have the pleasure of making that choice, which glass would give me the most pleasure today, then let's do that. Such a simple way to make ourselves happy, isn't it?
It is. It's a wonderful way to make ourselves happy. I'll tell you, it's interesting because as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about the ways in which two things. One, people talk about senility. And when people talk about senility, I always cringe a bit because there's too much conversation about this as a done deal, hopeless scenario. And people don't stop and think, wait a second, what have we done with this person to keep their mind alive? Is the person isolated and lonely without that great mental stimulation and interaction of others? Is there a lack of physical activity? And when we're talking about objects like the collection of glasses and mugs that we both have, I'm thinking about the ways in which we've got this wonderful way to pick up a mug or a glass from all the different places in the world that both of us have been and have memories sparked. So when we're talking about sensuous and sensuality and sensual experiences, they are so, it's not just pleasurable in the moment but it is sparking our mind and sparking memories, right?
Absolutely. I love that image I'm getting when you use the word spark of our brain, literally, which it does, lighting up. So by stimulating different senses and diving into those memories and noticing what's happening, our brain literally comes alive.
Yes.
So I love that connection. And I think you're right. There's a lot of stigma and stories, as with most things, right, around senility or dementia, or this idea that we need to get old and sick and then kind of run out of energy and then die, and that's just what happens.
Right.
So I can't tell you how often I've had conversation with people who say, well, that's just part of old age.
I hate that.
Right? And I'm always, really? Are you sure about that? Is that true? And then they look at me and I said, well, it really depends on what we hold true as to what we will make happen. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about those people who actually live a long, long, healthy, beautiful life, fulfilling until the last day and then just go? Not because they have to, because their body is done, but because it's a choice, because their time is up. Have you ever thought about that? So I think it's so important that we always seek for role models of lifestyles and the quality of life that we're desiring, rather than going around looking what is normal, because we don't want to be normal people. We really don't.
Heaven forbid. The other thing that I did is I was walking in my kitchen, and I walk over to my coffee machine and I open up the lid and I put in the filter, and I use a gold filter so that there's no paper that I need to deal with. And I open up the container of the fresh ground coffee beans.
Doesn't
And
coffee smell even better than it tastes?
phenomenal. Yes, indeed it does. And I start that clean water into the container. I close it and I turn it on. I see the little light go on. And so I'm having this aroma. I am having this visual. And then I just kind of open up my cabinet, stand back, open up the cabinet, and contemplate. What do I feel like touching? What is going to feel like what it is I need in my hand? And yeah, you and I live by intention a lot.
And I'm also noticing we're both very kinesthetic people. So when I listen to us talking, we're talking a lot about what we feel and what it does to our bodies. And I'm also wondering, that same process for someone who's maybe not that strongly kinesthetic could be sparked by them paying attention to it. So if someone listening right now says, well, I'm actually more a visual person, so I get my kick out of beauty that I see, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So all our senses are important. And at the same time, it can be really interesting to explore which channels of information am I currently not really using. So someone who's maybe very visual might not be paying attention to the kinesthetic channel. And when we do pay attention to visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and then auditory digital, so the conversation in our heads, those are the main 4 channels that we have, then we can start tuning into, as you were just saying, the olfactory sense, that smell, then the gustatory, the taste, and all that. So once we start doing that, I've noticed that the whole rainbow starts opening up, because we literally become more aware. And that, I think, is when life starts getting interesting.
I do too. And going back to the activity of the brain, and you were just describing it, we're talking about that all the time, and when we highlight it, the idea behind our conversation is about life and loving life and having the full experience of it. And unless you are taking the time to just allow all these channels to be open, what have you got to lose by trying anything that we're suggesting? People get so resistant sometimes. It's like, yeah, well, I don't do it that way.
And I think often it's really led by fear. You see, because our brain, again, if we just bring it down to some science, our brain is not wired to really like new things. We kind of resist change in any case, because we're usually driven by the oldest part of our brain, the reptilian brain. And for the reptilian brain, any change, even if it's good change, is change, and that is scary. So if we're tuned into fear, maybe because we're dealing with chronic stress, or we're having issues with anxiety, or we're just, we've got that lens of fear on right now for whatever reason, then it can be hard to even want to connect to our senses, because it can feel like it's too much. I can't deal with what is anyway. So if I add more to this, that's the kind of logic that I think our brain does. I will be overwhelmed. And unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, the opposite is true. I always say to my students and clients, I don't want you to become numb. It's not about cutting yourself off if you're, for instance, hypersensitive. I want you to be even more sensitive, but be sensitive to your own needs first. Don't go all sensitive out there and connect to everything that is, all the drama around you. Take time to disconnect from that and become sensitive to your own needs. And when we do that, we're actually in not only a self-loving action, but we're actually doing something that's going to make ourselves feel better. Because once I know what I'm sensing and feeling, once I know what I need, I can also ask questions of how do I fulfill that need for myself? What is it that I need? I don't know, like with food, I've often discovered I'll start snacking or binging on ridiculous stuff when I'm bored or when I'm sad or when I'm tired.
Yes.
So by tuning into saying, what is it that I really need right now? Of course, I can go and eat that donut, but is it really what I need? Or do I actually need something else? And then when I started asking those questions to myself, I discovered patterns. And then I was able to make conscious choices every now and again and say, you know what, I won't eat that donut. I'll just go take a nap, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll go take a bath, or I'll go call
Yes.
someone. Sometimes we're actually needing connection and or rest or whatever. So I love that we're having this conversation.
I do too. It's helpful. The other thing that I think about is the ways in which when people that I'm working with are in the hospital and they might be on a ventilator or in some way unconscious. And I will bring in music and I will bring in aromas that I have inside information from either knowing them or knowing their loved ones. What are aromas that are pleasing to them? Because I don't want to bring them anything that's repelling. And when you do that, it is absolutely amazing the ways in which you can watch the monitors that people are hooked up on in a hospital room, and you get biofeedback immediately for what your impact is. You walk in the room and they hear your voice, and if you're kind and genteel and your cadence is about relaxation, you can capture them, and you know how well you've captured them because of what you're reading on the instruments. And then you can look at their oxygen saturation, and it's really fascinating the ways in which we have hard data then about the ways in which a person is responding on the senses, and you can get hard data and track it and see how all the things that we're talking about in terms of a sensuous experience is healing.
Beautiful. Well, we do know love is the medicine that can heal all. It sounds so woozy floozy, right? But
Yes.
Love is that highest frequency. So when we come with an intention of love, a loving touch, think of how our moms calmed us or comforted us when we hurt ourselves as kids, and that helped. It eases pain. There's so much research on this, isn't it?
Yes.
I love how you're doing that in hospitals, and I love how you're really reading, the machines you have available for what you're doing. And research shows that, loving touch and a loving intention reduces stress. It's all about energy, isn't it? If we're in a good space, we're in a loving place, that energy is going to radiate out. It does. I mean, the torus, so the energy field around our heart, is massive, up to 8 meters. I don't know how much that is in foot, but a lot. But over 20 foot, right? That's how far the vortex of our heart reaches out. So whether we like it or not, we are in each other's heart spaces if we're in a room with someone. So if we're in there, why don't we send some loving energy? So I've noticed that by, doing so much research with also like you with heart math and recognizing what power our heart has, it's so helpful to just use simple breath and beautiful thoughts of something like, I am love, you are love, something nice, and take a moment to connect to your heart before you go out into the world and connect to others. And doing that consciously has helped me so often, especially in moments of conflict, when I was maybe, challenged by some very, very angry person or upset person. And at first, I used to get really scared of those sort of people. I didn't know how to deal with them. I'd be like this bunny or deer in front of the headlights, totally shocked. So, oh my God. But now I've realized, sometimes you don't have to do anything. It's actually way more powerful to just listen to someone, to let them vent all the stuff that's going on. And in that time, just connect to your breath, keep repeating, I am love, it's not personal, sending out good intentions and staying in that space of love. And it can be hard at the beginning, even just staying silent when someone's ranting at you can be hard. But when we take that time, I've noticed, that negative energy, that aggravation often just dispels by itself, because I didn't step into it. I just let it be. I accepted it and stayed in a good space myself. And that's really, really helped me so often.
I love what you're talking about there. And here's what I'm wondering, Joy. In the midst of that, can you say more about what you think we can do with all the unrest that there is here in the United States? What do we do, Joy? Do we have people, we don't want to put anybody in harm's way, but do we have people somewhere? Does it work if we're remote and we can put loving energy into the riotous crowds? Or are they so out of control that we can't do anything? What can we do?
Yes, we can send loving energy. Short answers, let's all pray more. Really, doesn't matter if you're religious or not. I'm not a very religious person at all. And I believe in the power of prayer. I really do. There's so much research. Look at the peace studies done in the 70s, where it was proven that if a group of people pray in a city, the accidents go down, violence goes down, the amount of hospitalizations goes down, the world becomes more peaceful. And, there's an algorithm to this, and I'm betting that algorithm is actually changing. But what I know from the last studies is that it only takes 60,000 people on this planet to connect in meditation to be able to influence the entire planet's collective field. 60,000 people is not that much, right? I think that what is happening on our planet right now, all this, trying to split us, trying to disconnect people from people, all this loneliness, all the shutdown, everything that's going on. It's actually an invitation for us to start connecting in a different way, just like we're doing now. Like every listener who's listening right now, we're in a field together. So when we are in a field together and we share the intention of, for instance, sending out more loving energy, then that is happening just by our intention. And if we now invest time into it by, taking a few moments, breathing, keeping good energy flowing in our own bodies, we are impacting the collective in a positive way. So I think that is the most important thing we can do right now.
So how would we do that? We would just invite people in and say, right now, every day at this time, let's collectively do this prayerful hour, this prayerful quarter of an hour.
Yes, make it. I'm thinking, most people are so busy and are not used to taking breaks throughout the day.
Yeah.
Make it simple. Let's do every day 10 minutes. At this time, this is what we're doing. So we know from the quantum field that even if you were to connect to that field later on in the day for your 10 minutes, because you're in a different time zone, it doesn't matter in the quantum field. The quantum field has no time. So it'll still have an impact. I would think that would be one of the most beautiful practices we could do for ourselves and others. Because let's not get it wrong. We're doing ourselves good by taking 10 minutes each day to pray. And if we then have an altruistic motive, we are backed by the universe. This is about more than just us. And all we could do simply would be to sit down, to say, okay, these 10 minutes we will devote to sending out and receiving or tapping into the love energy on this planet. And just breathe love. We could say mantras if we like to. Everybody who's taking part could do their own prayers in the way that they like. We could just sit in silence. You know, I don't think it really matters so much what we do. It's more about how much space can we hold. Can we all be those vessels? And I say, yes, we can. All it is with time is training to stay that vessel, to be able to take control over that busy, busy mind and stay connected to our breath. You know, there's so much nonsense out there about meditation, and there's so much stigma, I think, around it too. But all it is calming the mind.
Well, there's so many people who talk about doing meditation, but they don't know how to do it. I've actually had the experience. This is so ironic. I've had the experience of sitting in on people's meditations, and they were so annoying because they kept doing things. It's like, okay, we're almost there. Stop. We're just getting there. Stop.
Doing nothing can be pretty hard. I'd love to share a mantra that I love using when I meditate, because it's so simple, and I think our listeners might enjoy that too. So all it is that you sync your breath with this mantra. So every inhale that you take, you say, I am love. And every exhale that you release, you say, I am eternal. Every inhale after that is, I am infinite. And then you go back to exhaling, I am love. So by using I am love, I am eternal, I am infinite, we're literally cleaning our own vessel, our channel, to the essence of what we can all agree on. We're all energy. We all come from the same source. We are that love. And then when we say I'm eternal, it means I am transcending time. I'm not about just this moment now or yesterday or tomorrow. I'm eternal. My frequency, my energy, my essence is eternal, right? And then I say I'm infinite, which means I am not limited by space. It doesn't matter where I am on this planet. I'm infinite. My frequency, my energy can be felt all over the planet if someone chooses to tune into it.
Yes.
So I love using that mantra because it's so nice and neutral. And it really calms my system. And after a time, I like adding visuals. So you could imagine breathing in this bright white light. And then every time you exhale, you're releasing everything that no longer serves you. And that's really all it takes. Do that 10 minutes every day and watch your life change. It's rather fabulous.
I love that. You know, I actually have been at the medical practice that I spend time in as a guide, as a holistic practitioner, as an educator. I spend time talking to all these different people who are coming in, who, now that we're past the acute phase for most of the patients, we're looking at, okay, you're back at work, you're back in your world, and how is it that you deal with what it is that comes to you? And there's a number of people who are in law enforcement. And so I put the heart math device onto them. And those of our listeners who don't know what that is, it's a sensor that we put on the ear. And then there's an app on the phone and a cord that plugs into your phone. And we get to really learn how to be in coherence between the mind and the heart. And it's beautiful because you actually, your breath, you're tracking your breath with a visual, and you're either sitting there in silence doing that, captivated by the picture that's modulating with your breath, or there's a scene that you can listen to, or there's different audio that you can listen to. But you know, I did this with these law enforcement professionals, and it was amazing. These people are so skilled. It was so amazing for them to be able to slide into it.
To get that empowerment, right? To be able to be in control of your own body and mind is that's powerful. I'm so glad you're doing that. They're real heroes. I know there's a lot of bad stuff that's going on too, but you know, to be a law enforcement officer in these times, to put yourself out there, to be, you know, face to face with a lot of violence, a lot of nasty stuff. I take my hat off. I take my hat off to every single one of them. That's courage.
I do. It is courage. It's absolute sheer courage. And when I interview these people, I am amazed at their patience. I am amazed at their attitudes. They're in the
Mm.
privacy of an office. You and I know what it's like when people come in and talk to us. People are raw and they're delightfully honest.
Mm.
And their energy pours forth, and I've been amazed at the frequency and the energy that I feel from these people.
Beautiful. I'm glad you're having those experiences. I hope that gives everyone who's had less good experiences with law enforcement officers hope.
Yes, I hope so too. I'll tell you
Mm.
the other thing. I keep going back to the people who are rioting and looting, and some of them who are protesting because the level of frustration that's driven them into a protest frame of mind, even though I relate, there have been things that I have protested, but I have done it very differently. But we need to figure out the ways. I like that we're coming up with ways here today about doing collective prayer and collective meditation, but we need an additional element of something, Joy, that is really going to
Mm.
capture people. And
Mm.
I don't know where that is. It feels to me like we have to own the media channels, or we have to lure the media channels into allowing time in every episode of the news.
Well,
Be quiet.
okay, so I don't know how much truth to speak right now, but what I have learned so far is that the media channels that we have, mainstream media that we have right now, is not free media. This is basically right now it's global propaganda.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as if this media has any interest in really helping people find truth, help themselves. So I think we're going to have to rely on different channels of information. I think we have to strengthen the bonds that we have with the people around us.
Yeah.
Every single one of us needs to start tidying up in our own community, in our own family, in our own relationships, because that is where we're going to create peace. We can go out there, seek peace, make peace, but
Right.
why not start within our own circles? I say start within yourself. And this is a process. It's a continuous process, if you ask me. There are enough people out there that'll piss me off. So forgiving people is something I need to do continuously. And I have to, because otherwise it bungs up my energy channels. I get frustrated. I get angry. I hang on to negative energy that's actually going to harm me.
Yeah.
So when we see it in that simple, practical way, it's a daily practice. And then if we do that, we will notice that there'll be more peace, not only within ourselves, but also around us. We'll start attracting people that are also interested in peace. We'll start making peace more by just being ourselves, not having to necessarily do that much. Because you see, we're up against giants. We have $1 billion pharma industry. We have a bunch of politics going on. And unfortunately, a group of people who are right now leading this planet who do not have our highest good in our interest. That's just how it is. They're more interested in decimating people to get rid of people on the planet. So, there's less mouths to feed. If that is what we have, I don't think there's going to be much point in going out and fighting Goliath with our bare fists and going out there protesting, being angry, la la la. I don't think that's how we're going to win the battle. We've got to be smarter than that. We have to go beyond. We have to rise above that and make sure that our energy fields are higher than that. Love is higher than fear. Love will always trump fear. We just need to consciously and continuously practice it. And I think that's where community comes in. Because when we're all on our own, it's harder. But if we have people that, like you and I, we're hundreds and hundreds of miles away, but we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
I have my parents in Austria, thousands of miles away, and we're connected. So the distance is not the thing. It's more that we want to do this and that we see the necessity of it, so that we can build. I see this grid of, some people call them light workers, some call them, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, but people who have the intention of seeing this planet heal, seeing themselves heal, living in a more peaceful time. We need to hold that vision and we need to practice it in our daily lives. And then I think that's where we will win. Love will win, always does.
I am so aligned with you on every bit of that. And I believe that for any solution, love is at the core of it. And we have to find the ways to touch ourself with love, in ways that are genuine.
Mm.
And you know, if I don't really mean fake it until you make it, but I mean keep practicing until you genuinely feel it.
Mm.
And then remember the games that we played with our babies? Hug yourself so big.
That's right.
Do it, do it, do it.
I'm going to hug myself right now just to
Me
practice
too.
that. Give a
Yes,
little squeezy.
yes. Big hug. I'm doing the same thing. And it feels, you know, it feels wonderful. I've got my arms wrapped around myself. I'm squeezing my upper arms. I'm squeezing my shoulders and crunching them in. And I'm just watching the smile on my face as I'm doing it because it feels marvelous. Just to be enfolded right there into another being. You know, we are our other being as well as being our own being, right? Me, myself, and
I love me and myself. You know what I've started practicing now, because I read it actually in a book by Ajahn Brahm.
okay.
Yep. And he was saying, you've got to do 20 push-ups a day. And I was like, oh God, I hate push-ups.
Yeah,
And then I read which sort of push-ups he means. And the push-ups he means is you put your index fingers to the corner of your mouth, right? Left and
okay.
right. Mhm.
Okay.
And then you pull the corners of your mouth up so you're fake smiling. And
It
he says
makes
you've
your
got to
teeth
do,
stick out.
that's right, you've got to do 20 of those every single morning. And it is faking it. But you see, the thing is, because you're faking this very weird smile, your brain thinks something really cool is happening right now. So it'll actually make you feel better.
All
So
right.
ever since I've read it, I've started doing that. And I get a giggle out of it every day. I think this is so ridiculous, but you know, I'm kind of having fun. So let's keep going.
I'll tell you, as I'm doing it, you know, first it was like I had to drag them up there, just get up there. And then by a third of the way through, I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, let's go again. Got my eyebrows up and, you know, my eyes opened up. There are things that we can do that are hilarious like that, but there's science to it. So I don't know if I ever told you this little sweet thing that my mother would do. All she would do is see me get a look about me that said, I'm not happy. I'm not happy about this. I need to do something about this. And I'm talking about being 3, 4, and 5 years old. And she would look at me and know. She was so dialed in. And she'd say, okay, come on, take my hand. I don't want to take your hand. Come on, take my hand. No, do it anyway. So she'd take my hand. We'd walk over to a big mirror. And she'd say, okay, we're going to stand here. We're going to hold hands. We're going to look straight in the mirror. We're going to look into our own eyes. And we're going to put a big smile on our face and count to 10. And I can remember stomping my foot saying, no, no, I'm not doing it. No. She said, come on, here we go. 1. And I couldn't help, you know. So it was like 1. And you had to put the big fake smile. Otherwise, she'd make you start over. 1, 2. By the time you get to 5, you're laughing. And
I
it's
love that.
beautiful. So I adore her. I mean, I gave that poor woman a run for a lot of years, but I'll tell you what, I spent decades after I was an adolescent making up for it. But I took that practice. I've taught it to all kinds of people. So I'll say to people, you know, when you're driving in the car, that rear view mirror, it's actually got a dual purpose. And people go, what do you mean? Well, you are supposed to track the traffic and look into it every so many seconds and make sure that you're aware of your surroundings. But are you really aware of your internal surroundings? Well, what do you mean? That mirror is also designed to catch your eyes so that you can flirt with yourself.
I love that.
So, you know,
Say,
give
hey,
yourself
baby.
grace.
Hey,
Yeah,
precious.
yeah.
Hey,
Look,
darling.
exactly. Go look in there, raise your eyebrows a little bit at yourself, you know, do the little twinkle in the eye, bob your head a little bit, give a little wink, you know, and
I love that.
isn't it fun? You have to do it. You have to do it. I want to hear how much you love it when you do it.
I certainly will. And I will also do that practice with my daughter Grace of standing in front of the mirror when she's grumpy next.
Yes.
And if with your permission, I would love to teach that to my Joyful Kids ambassadors.
Oh, I insist.
Cool. We'll call it the Deb Carlin mirror. Deb's mirror. That's what we'll call it.
There you go. Deb's mirror.
Deb's mirror. There you
Deb's
go.
reflection.
Deb's reflection. We'll work on it. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
we'll
Thank
work
you
on
for
it.
sharing that.
I would love to participate with you on all that work, because the more that I love children. I have such a wonderful affinity.
I bet you do. I bet kids love you too.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, they do.
Of course they do.
And it's so sweet. So, I'll be laying on the beach, so I'm right at their height, right? And they always come over and sit at the edge of my blanket or my towel. And, I've got a couple of different lounge chairs that I'll take, but it's when I'm laying on my belly and I've got my elbows up, right? And I'm kind of looking at kids playing, and I'm looking out at the water. They always come over and they want to see what I have. So, I got nothing here, kids. I got the sand. You got the sand. And they just meander over, and then, parents get a little embarrassed. Oh, no, come over here. And it's like, hey, they're just coming where they know they're welcome.
Yeah. Kids are very sensitive to that. That is true.
Yeah, it really is true. And then, okay, here's another sensuous experience. The idea of being on the beach, on the sand, and walking into the cool water, sometimes cold, and you go from the hot sand to the wet sand into the water, walking across beautiful, soft, sugary sand into the lake, and icy cold, and you're just thinking, oh, my whole body. You get you about up to your thighs and your hips, and you almost have your brain start sparkling like a sparkler that you light a match to for the birthday cakes. And you get this whole body rush of cold, and then all of a sudden, magically, you're acclimated to it, and it feels no longer cold. It feels like your body energy has warmed up the water. And then you walk a little further and you get out to your shoulders. Then you just let your feet drift up behind you, and you start to scull in the water, and have your palms face down, and you're going in circular motions with your arms and your palms going in opposite directions outward, and it helps you stay afloat. And then you just, spread your body out and swim a little. And then one of the most wonderful things I love to do is I love to hang in the water, get where I'm deep, and just, hang there. I've got my arms resting on the top of the surface of the water. This is funny. I'm doing it like you can see me hanging in the water.
I'm
and
doing it too.
Whole body just hang loose.
Yes.
So comfortable.
Feeling so supported by that water.
Yes.
Makes you feel almost weightless.
Yes.
And I love lying there and then imagining how I'm not only feeling this deep sense of gratitude to be in that precious moment, but also to be held like that. And I imagine that the water is really removing and pulling out everything that no longer serves me and transforming it into this beautiful energy that then's feeding me again. And this unison with the elements, that's a beautiful sensuous experience for me.
I love that you did that. Yeah. I am a floater. I can put my head back and float in a breath. And I've had people say, what device are you laying on? Water.
Really? I can lay on water, so can you?
I love to lay on the water, and I'm so one with it. And sometimes I'll get funny and I'll clasp my hands behind my back and cross my ankles. And then it really does look like I'm on some sort of a device. I don't think I could drown. I mean, it's just, I must have been really happy in utero, and all the fluid.
I think we all were very happy and then we
Yeah, don't we all want to return to it under the blanket?
Well, floating on water does give us that feeling again. I think that's also the magic of the floating tanks, where we have actually sensory deprivation, right? I went to a floating tank here in Asheville once, and you spend an hour in this salt water, floating, warm water, body temperature, and it's a totally dark cabin, and it's really it's intense. At first I was like, I can't do this. It's 1 hour. I'm going out. My neck is stiff. I can't hold myself. I want to get out of here. What if I want to get out? They were like, you can always come out, but why don't you just stay in there? So, yeah. And then at some point, something takes over, or we relax so deeply that time no longer matters. And then suddenly it was time to go again. And I was surprised how deeply I could just let go. And it literally felt like being in mama's belly again. Very safe, very nice. That's a very good practice. We could even do in our bathtub. You know, if we don't have a sensory deprivation tank, put some Epsom salts in your bathtub, turn off the lights, and dive under. I love that sound of my own heartbeat when I go under the water. Just feeling the warm water trickling into my ears, and then sound goes away, and it's all
That was perfect. That was perfect. Oh, Joy, it has been fabulous, and we're at the end of our hour.
Wow, didn't time fly? I hope our listeners enjoyed it as much as we did.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign us off, but I want you to stay on our call. I'll just stop.
I will, babe.
And friends, it has been an absolute pleasure to be here today. I hope that you have found it to be an absolute pleasure. Dr. Joy Martina, you are an angel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So here we go.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay.